We will reconvene the September 3rd, 2024, 2 o'clock meeting to order at 3:15. With no further business, we'll adjourn the meeting at 3:15 p.m. That was for our 2 o'clock meeting. Now we'll get this next one started. We'll now call the meeting of the Waco City Council on September 3rd, 2024 to order at 3:16 p.m. Welcome everybody, those at home on the Waco City Cable Channel, and welcome to everybody here in the gallery today. To start the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now open the meeting. We provide an opportunity at the front end of the meeting here for the public to address the City Council on any agenda item or during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda. On items other than public hearing, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation, regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you're here to speak and have not filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary staff at the registration table out back there. And they'll provide you registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to the council. If you're unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. We do have one card today, Ms. Karen Eggetts. Would you come forward? You have 3 minutes. As you approach the podium, give us your name and address. And
Karen Eggetts, 511 Kings Row.
thanks, Karen.
I've been a volunteer at the shelter for 3 years, and I'm there every day, donating more than 20 hours a week to my community, loving the dogs and assisting Humane Society staff with the seemingly hundreds of fires they put out each day. I will continue to go to the shelter every day to love the dogs and support the city staff however I can. I have lots of hopes. I hope the city has a robust volunteer program. Volunteers are the ones who walk and love on the dogs, as staff does not have time to enjoy that luxury. I hope you have someone teach orientation who encourages our community to be a part of the village it takes to walk and love these dogs while they're waiting for their forever homes. I have helped lead volunteer orientation, and I'd be happy to assist your new orientation coordinator if necessary. I want our city and our shelter to succeed. Playgroup is an amazing program that gives staff an opportunity to learn each dog's behavior. The importance of Playgroup cannot be overstated. I hope you will continue Playgroup and employ matchmaking staff who are committed to learning about each dog so they can better match the perfect dog with its forever family. People come to the shelter looking for specific characteristics in a dog. It is imperative your staff knows each dog's temperament and behavior. Playgroup is the best way to learn that. Because humans are ignorant of dog behavior, myself included, I hope you employ staff who have dog behavior experience. Staff will evaluate each dog's behavior and determine which dogs are safe for the volunteers to handle and for our community to meet. It is imperative to keep our volunteers and our dogs safe by properly evaluating each dog's behavior. Staff cannot do that without dog behavior experience. I understand that Kristen Reed is now I don't know the title, a behavioralist. That's a tough job. I hope she can remain objective and make decisions based on facts and specific protocols and not on one interaction with the dog and its alleged history. I hope that the city requires pictures of alleged bites before putting a bite on a dog's record, because a bite can be a death sentence to a dog, and people are often not truthful. Lastly, this is my opinion, and no one has asked me to say this, but with her years of experience at the shelter, I hope you ask Nikki Freeman, a Humane Society staff member, to, on some level, help train your new matchmaking staff. Nikki has been at the shelter and has worked with our dogs for years. To understand who Nikki is, it's important to know this. Nikki's son was murdered. Nikki's son was murdered. Her nephew died in a car accident a few years ago. She has survived breast cancer, a double mastectomy, and the cancer drugs have wreaked havoc on her body. She also is a survivor of a double kidney transplant. I say that so you understand that Nikki, in a very real sense, lives for these dogs. She could not save her son or her nephew, but she can save these dogs, and she has experience. And I know she would do whatever is necessary to help the city. Just as a volunteer, I'll continue to go to the shelter to spend time with the dogs and to support the city. in whatever capacity they need. I pray hard that you know that the city I pray hard that the city's a success in maintaining our current no-kill status. It's a huge undertaking, but together, the city and our community, we can do it. Our community is here to support you, our city, as you help with animals that cross our paths.
Thank you so much, Ms. Eggets. Appreciate you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on a work session agenda item? There being none, we will now recess the regular session and convene to work session with a report from the city manager. City Manager Ford.
Good afternoon, everybody in the audience. We have no changes to the agenda that's been posted. We do have two informal reports on the agenda today. IR 635 is an update on restrooms in city parks and details the methodologies we use for selecting which parks get restrooms. And this informal report was a response to a recent resident question at a hearing of visitors relative to Reverend Wilbert Austin Park in East Waco. IR 637, a second IR, I don't know if we didn't know how to count. What was the reason we skipped a number?
So, notice that. 636 is a mystery.
36 must be like the 13th floor in a hotel, but we just don't use it. IR 637 provides an update on Waco Regional Airport terminal restaurant and what looks to be a 4-month delay for the opening of the restaurant due to some additional engineering needs and replacement work of on-site utilities in the kitchen space.
So they're having problems with getting a vent hood, is that what I saw? And that is one of the major causes of the delay?
Can I respond to that? I mean, 'cause I think and then you can straighten out what Andre and I are talking about.
Sure.
I was thinking that the Vent-A-Hood, as we were doing the major construction in the lobby area,
Right.
that whole thing had to be dismantled. In order to not slow that project down, we went ahead and kind of moved the Vent-A-Hood. Now we realize that the Vent-A-Hood has to be rebuilt for this bistro. Is that generally correct?
That's a decent part of the story. Howell, do you have anything to add?
Pick out, one of them's going to be a little late, and I don't know if we could have done work on the Vent. Howell will tell us.
Yeah. So Howell Martinez, Director of Aviation City Waco. Good afternoon. Yes, so that was totally deconstructed, and so we didn't install that at the time because we didn't know what the needs of the vendor would be. And so through that process, we had to secure the vendor, get them under contract, and then understand what their needs were to install that equipment appropriately to meet their needs for, the size and of the units themselves.
Because we just signed that contract in what, May?
The one with
This summer.
our
Yeah,
tenant
spring.
contract?
Yes, that was done in May.
And it's about a 4-month delay, you said? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Howell. I'll just comment on the Jonathan's report, IR. Cook, are you here today?
Is it?
Oh, right in front row. Yeah, good little report. I got the tie on and everything. Are you you presenting? Okay. Got a haircut and a tie. Nice, kind of a one-pager on how we differentiate restrooms in neighborhood, community, regional, and your thought process on, maintenance, liability, costs. There's a lot that goes into trying to figure out whether a restroom can go into to one of these parks. And you also pointed out proximity of neighboring city facilities in some cases in parks that don't have restrooms. So anyway, nice little report. That's all I had on those two.
When things happen like that and this is a question for you, Bradley, I suppose, at citizens' requests, when, those kind of information, or this kind of information is requested, do we reach out to them as well? I mean, because yes, I'm sure everybody is riveted to our council meetings and, and comb through with great deliberation, the agenda is posted on the internets. But if not, to answer Mr. McDowell's question, does anybody reach out or?
We do. Typically, I either attempt to respond with an email with a link to the document.
Okay.
Or if we don't have the email for the person, we'll call. Yeah, we do not solely rely on the posting of the agenda to answer the question. There are 4 public hearings today on your agenda, Council. Public hearing 647 is the emergency reading for the ordinance setting the tax rate for fiscal year 24-25. The tax rate proposed is less than the voter-approved tax rate, but exceeds the no new revenue tax rate. So you do have special language at your place regarding the motion to be used. The proposed tax rate of 75.5 cents remains at the lowest level since at least 15 years ago. Public hearing 648 considers changes necessary for the implementation of the revised street fee set to begin October 1st of this year. As council's heard previously, the new street fee would assist the city in maintaining a street network that's more than 1,500 lane miles and has a replacement value north of $2 billion. The new street fee is anticipated to generate about $2.6 million annually from residents and businesses and will help us increase street maintenance across the city. The proposed ordinance on the street fee includes in it a list of exemptions that residents, particularly those that do not have access to vehicles, can take advantage of. And it also includes a 5-year sunset provision that allows the council to reconsider this fee in 5 years. 649 and 650 provide the updated service and assessment plans of the Waco Public Improvement District Number 1, which predominantly covers downtown and a portion of East Waco, as well as the Tourism Public Improvement District, respectively. Each of those public hearings in the item on the agenda have detailed budgets included, and so I'd invite you to take a look at those at your leisure. We have 32 resolutions on the agenda today. I don't plan to highlight any specifically due to time constraints on our agenda today, but I'd welcome any comments or questions on resolutions at this time.
Any questions on the resolution or discussion?
We have 12 ordinances on your agenda today. I'm going to just speak to Ordinance 685 for a moment. It considers an amendment to the board composition of the Animal Welfare Board. That's held in Chapter 5. This ordinance would replace the seat on the board previously held by the Humane Society in their capacity as a contracted entity of the animal shelter. With the recent resolution of our agreement with them, we thought it would be appropriate to replace the Humane Society from the list of 13 customer cities that use the shelter and have contracts with us existing. That's what Ordinance 685 is seeking to do. And Mayor and Council, that concludes my report for today, and I'll take any questions you have.
Would city staff or the board itself determine who that contracting entity representative would be?
We updated the contract cities and county last Thursday, and they, much like the 911 board or some of the other boards are done, they will come up with a name, and we'll present those, or a couple of names, we'll present those names to the city council's boards and commissions committee, and for y'all to make final choice on that.
Thanks so much.
Any other questions for city manager on ordinances, resolutions, or other? The consent agenda includes Resolution 2024-651 through Resolution 2024-682. Are there any other council items that council would like to remove from the consent agenda? There's no resolutions pulled, so the next item on the agenda is work session items 2024-638 through 2024-640. Bradley, would you please introduce the first work session?
Yes, sir. First one coming up is Jonathan Cook in his fancy tie. Discussion 638, discussion and update on Hawaiian Falls here in Waco, including the park's history and capital investment, as well as updates from recent annual reports. Also how 2024 has gone and what we're looking forward to in 2025. So Jonathan, I appreciate you doing a brief report today. I think he's going to spend about 10 minutes on this item.
Okay.
Mayor, Council, I appreciate the opportunity, and as Bradley, City Manager Ford mentioned, want to give you an update on some final numbers from 2003. Also look at our operations this season and how that season's coming to a close, and then looking to 2025. But first, wanted to give an overview on the park and a little lay of the land. And as you may recall, construction of the entire area there off of Lakeshore Drive, Steinbeck Bend area of Riverbend Park was in the 2001, 2003, to where we came in and built the baseball and softball facility. Also, in working with the Allen Samuels Group to construct the Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness Center and the Waco Water Park. At that time, Waco Water Park was a little bit smaller, with a lap pool, one slide complex, but in 2011, an agreement was established with Hawaiian Falls, added in 2 additional slide complexes, the lazy river, and then also the wave pool. So a really big investment. And since that time, we did transition over to an agreement with Pro Parks Management in 2018. And that company and their team have provided a really sense of stability for the park that's operated as a regional attraction daily from May to September, and averaging more than 90,000 guests, some years over 100,000 guests for the year. It is a piece of our facility, sits on 14 acres that's leased through Pro Parks Management with 12 slides, lazy river, the wave pool, also different aquatic playscapes for kids, and also food and beverage area and cabanas. One of the more interesting things is from May, really starting in April, and going through now in September, they'll always have in the range of 170 upwards of 220 workers employed out there for a year, all different types of jobs to help the economy. Now, I mentioned the contracts, and what I wanted to note here on this slide, just an overview of the contracts and agreements that we have had in place. We did come to council with an amendment number 1 to abate several years of annual lease payments, to where they came in with capital improvement projects, and that amendment 2 deals with the construction deadline extension. But then also, one of the last times we came to council and discussed Hawaiian Falls Waco, there was an approval to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages with certain restrictions at the park. Since that time, and not just due to alcohol, but really an improvement has remained the focus of safety and improved operations. With the bar service, they've given special care to manage that consumption. Wanted to provide an update that they have seen in 2 seasons of operations an annual revenue stream of $40,000 with no incidents coming from that area. They've also enhanced the food pavilion and created partnerships with HTO Waco, and also added mobile food ordering options. And then security enhancements. They've upped their security over the past couple of years, so there's a constant presence not only from the emergency side to deal with different situations, lost children in the parking lot areas as well. One of their big pushes is lifeguarding, and those continue to be a big focus in training lifeguards. And their president always tells me, a lifeguard can be in the system 5 to 6 years, so that training very important to them. And then they've also been able to have collaborations with 2 different local swim clubs in the area that they do provide swim lessons at the park as well, and use that as a host facility. Now look, we do every year receive an annual report from them with their numbers. And just want to touch on, you saw a big jump in 2003. It was a really good year for Hawaiian Falls, hitting over that 100,000 mark for attendance. And really looking at the season passes, up to 12,000, which is a really strong number. With those season passes, that's the bread and butter. And when you can sell those, you end up 4 to 5 visits. There's additional values that come with those in different promotions. You're able to get those at a low price, especially during the off season. And they are also good for Hawaiian Falls water parks in the Metroplex as well. In 2023, and looking at these numbers, it was the only park within the Pro Parks portfolio that had an increased year-over-year attendance. And so set some expectations, obviously coming out of post-COVID, you saw a really big spike, and glad to see those numbers where. Now in 2024, however, We have come in, and if you recall, we had a lot of flooding, May and June, rain days. They had 12 days of rain impact, so we got the facility off to a bit slower start. However, we've got two weekends left. They are expecting an attendance around 98,000 and looking at the numbers with solid revenue in line with the projections. Just a bit of a dip, 500 season passes, less than what was sold last year. Hoping to have that pendulum swing. I want to mention currently right now they're offering a promotion. You can buy your 2025 season pass, get it free for the rest of the year. Also get some buy one, get one type discounts as well. So they're looking to push some season passes here at the end of the season. Another big focus is they've brought in some key staff members to assist that came from the Six Flags Corporation in their marketing and community promotions with a very strong local presence. They provide a variety of pass and ticket programs with local schools, free passes for teachers in Waco SD and instructors at Baylor University. Also do a summer camp program with our City of Waco summer campers to where each kid does receive a season pass. They go there as part of the summer camps, but they can also go with their families on the weekend. They feel that working with the CVB and the chambers, they've had better success in some out-of-market promotions. And when I say out-of-market, back again to the DFW, if you look at the picture on the left, it's a promotion they did to where they hung out banners of stayinwacotx.com. Weekend getaway type signage was placed to promote people to come down, use their season pass, and stay in Waco. This year they also hosted the world's largest swim day, Champions Day, did a meet and greet back in May with Texas Rangers and Baylor alum Corey Bradford. So a lot of different community style promotions, especially around the holidays. They do have still a strong forecast as we're looking in that area, developments throughout Waco to lead to increase in attendance. Continue working with making an emphasis on regional tournaments at Riverbend Park, also at the tennis centers had a really strong year, and then with the development of Camp Finfo, they really feel like they're well situated to keep bringing in guests and keep making this investment into the park. Now, as far as capital, you've got to take care of it. Now, I mentioned we do have some slides. We have original slide complexes still in place, some that from 2011, and then also more recent enhancements. But every year we're on a trend here of where they're setting aside around $300,000 for capital improvements, and this is the upkeep. This year really surfaced in on some painting throughout the facilities. The picture on the bottom right, you can see those slides shining. That was one thing. They were having a lot of fades, so that was a pretty comprehensive project they did all season. And then they also came, and you notice the shade structures that they established up on top of the slides. The old ones had gotten ripped off during some storm events. But they added new water features for kids, a small slide, and the original playscape where when you walk into the facility had served its time, so that was replaced as well. So maybe more of a family-friendly area. They also did new cabanas and new chairs and furnishings this year. So a lot of continual improvements in taking care of the park. One of the things in 23 mentioned the new water sanitization system, a big investment, but it's really helped with the clarity and the quality of the water out there. Looking at 2025, one of the things that they say on top of the complaints, people having to wait too long for some food. It's a small kitchen. They added the mobile warning, they have the food pavilion, but it's keeping up with that demand and the sales. So they're looking at spreading that out a little bit more, perhaps an expansion project of some kitchen facilities. And then also diving into options to reconfigure or repurpose the original competition lap pool. And working on the annual inspections of that pool, we've got some surfacing issues that have come up that are creating something that's going to need to be addressed as far as that. It's a very hefty project when you complete resurface a lap pool, so they're looking at potential options. for perhaps to take place this off-season. I mentioned the season passes, they're pushing those now, and one other concept that they're looking at is even an earlier opening this year. They typically start first, second weekend of May and start doing some field trips. They've done this in some other areas to where they just start opening on the weekends to try to expand that season. I mentioned they'll be going 2 more weeks as far as September. So trying to definitely get it while the Texas weather is still warm. And it's been a good season so far, and they are looking forward to continuing the agreement with the city of Waco for the future for Hawaiian Falls.
Any questions for Jonathan? Guys?
Jonathan, I would say the Border Route family enjoyed our season passes at Hawaiian Falls. We had good. We did about 4.5 visits, if I recall correctly. We
0.5.
Yeah, it was the 0.5. There was kind of a half visit in there. Maybe half of us went, but I thought it was a pretty good season. I know we approved the alcohol sales a few years back. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, and I haven't seen any. I know we put a 2-drink maximum. One of us slipped up and suggested it was a 2-drink minimum, but I don't think that went into the ordinance.
But it helped the revenue a little bit.
It would have helped with the revenue if there was a 2-drink minimum, but I will say that I haven't seen any. People are pretty well behaved when I go, and it's usually a lot of fun and good place to take the family. So appreciate the update. Seems like a good partnership, and that they're making necessary improvements from year to year. So thanks for this report.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just say, Pro Parks, our counterparty here, moved in 2018, I think. And it seemed like on pretty short notice, they mobilized, and I want to say it was that spring.
You're right.
And so we were all, kind of hesitant, hopeful, worried that they would have enough time to kind of get the product built like we wanted them to. And it seems like they've came through pretty well, the trend numbers, even though they're a little bit off maybe this year. We haven't seen the final numbers, but the overall trend in the last 4 years has been pretty consistent. So I'm happy that we have that. Part of their package is to get CapEx or new capital improvements every year. And I like how that's kind of moving along with slides and fixing up the pavilion, doing some painting and surface work, and just getting the structures all in shape. That helps the city long term too. So pretty good results here on this. One question I had, and this I'll follow up with you on this. You don't need to answer right now, but 12 days are out. It's pretty much closed down. Can you find out what previous year's average is? Because I know sometimes it comes through and rains, and they'll open it back up. But having that 12 seems like a high number, and it was kind of cooler this spring too. So maybe the attendance was down there also.
We'll definitely pull that and check and get those numbers.
Jonathan, that was I'm sorry, Mayor, I
go
didn't mean to interrupt. Just on that point, do you think that sweltering 2023 summer was part, like the actual wet, that just so dry, so hot, was part of that spike in season passes and attendance there?
It could have been. I know the rain even, let's say, and I was just talking to Kurt, with the forecast right now, it's a little cloudy. We're all excited, a little cooler weather. So it's like anytime that forecast, they'll see a dip. So even if it's not, a rain out, there can be some impact as well. So it's very weather dependent, much like golf course operations. But we'll look back at that year, what they had as an interesting note. I'd like to dig further.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying, get a lot of questions, particularly during the summer, and calls and emails and texts about, hey, where can we swim? Swimming pools need to be more prolific here in Waco, or more of them. And I'm happy that we have this Hawaiian Falls option where people can go. We are working on the Dory Miller Quinn pool too, that should be ready by the end of the year. That's going to be exciting. Lake Waco, when the levels are at the right level, provide an opportunity to swim. So we hear you, and we are working on it. So good presentation and nice work. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
The next item is work session 2024-639. City Manager Ford.
Yeah, we got Monica Settlementer coming down, our Director of Communications and Marketing. Thought it'd be good for her to provide an overview of their recent activities. Monica's been leading our communications efforts for a couple of years now, and the team that she's assembled behind her has done a whole lot of work. And so you'll see that fruit in the presentation today. It covers a multitude of topics, but just want to say a thanks to her whole team for handling the branding work, the website, the app, and also maintaining a focus on improving our internal communications. That's something the public doesn't necessarily see, but very important to me as city manager that our 1,700 employees know what's going on, and Monica's been a big leader in that. So thanks, Monica, and you've got the mic.
Great. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As Bradley said, Monica Settlemeyer, Director of Communications and Marketing, and today I'm going to just share a little bit of an update on my team. So let's begin at the foundation. Last week, we had a leadership development training and discussed our city's mission, vision, and values, and our personal mission statements. This discussion got me thinking of the purpose of my department. Our value statement is simple. The Communication and Marketing Department is the resource for transparent, effective, and engaging communication between the City of Waco, its employees, and its residents. Our purpose is to keep our community informed, foster engagement, and promote the city's initiatives. Our mission is to serve Waco's brand by representing it consistently, helping create a more connected, vibrant, and thriving community. We're dedicated to telling Waco's story with integrity and excellence. So what do? Our team consists of 3 different divisions. The Public Relations and Communications is responsible for managing the city's public relations, including media relations, press releases, and crisis communications. Our video production team develops and creates the video content for the city, ranging from informational videos to promotional materials that highlight the city's initiatives and events. And our last division is our Marketing and Graphic Division, which manages our brand's identity, includes the design and dissemination of marketing materials. As you know, we've been implementing our new brand standards and ensuring all communication and marketing materials follow these guidelines. We've developed a consistent brand design that aligns with these standards and is reflected in our visual elements. Our goal is a unified and recognizable identity for the city that communicates its value effectively, builds trust, and fosters deeper connection with our audience. Some of the visual outcomes seen throughout the community include branding on banners, billboards, and buses. Not only have we been implementing the City of Waco's brand, we've established brand guidelines and new logos for the Waco Regional Airport and Waco McLennan Public Health. The Waco Regional Airport needed a new modern brand to coincide with the terminal's modernization project. The font in the Waco of this logo mimics the same font used in the city's new branding and includes an icon that represents a plane wing. The Waco McLennan Public Health logo features 5 encircled figures symbolizing the diverse and unified services of public health, and each of color is reflective of the different divisions within the department. Our video production team is responsible for creating high-quality visual content that captures and communicates the essence of the city's initiatives, events, and services. This team plays a vital role in storytelling, producing a wide range of video content, including promotional videos, public service announcements, event coverage, and internal communications. Their work supports the city's mission by ensuring that key messages are effectively conveyed. With expertise in videography, editing, photography, and multimedia production, this team collaborates with a variety of departments to highlight Waco's vibrant community and the city's ongoing efforts to enhance quality of life for all. Additionally, this team is responsible for the content on My Waco TV, the city cable channel, and the production broadcasting of these meetings. So public relations and communications. We share information with our community in a variety of ways. Monthly, we produce the City Limits newsletter that is mailed in water bills. It's also available in our city buildings and online. We email our City Limits e-newsletter every 2 weeks to just under 15,000 subscribers, which saw a 9% increase from September of 2023, an improvement over the 2% increase from the prior year. Our engagement rate is a 67%, reflecting the percentage of subscribers who either opened or clicked the links. This is an amazing number. The average email marketing open rate is just over 21%. Also, we recently transitioned our new email notification system to centralize in one system. So that includes our email news from Public Health, Library Services, Neighborhood Engagement, Parks and Rec, Development Service, and Sustainability all onto one platform. From September of '23 to August of '24, a total of 184 email bulletins were sent to over 550,000 subscribers. Social media is crucial for real-time communication with residents, allowing us to reach a broad audience quickly and effectively. This chart here shows the continued growth from 2023 to 2024 on our different platforms. We have a combined over 84,000 followers. Social media has increased awareness of programs, services, resources, and events, and highlights the excellent work that's happening throughout the city. We launched our new website in October of 2022 and haven't slowed down since. Our website is central hub for city news, events, and resources. With the momentum of the new website, we launched the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum site in this January. The website is designed with a focus on accessibility and usability, ensuring that information is readily available and easy to navigate. Additionally, we're working on upcoming ADA compliance regulations and a new website for animal services. Our top visited pages on the website are paying your water bill, library, and our careers page. My team also assists in event support. Some of the recent events include the Waco Demo Day and the terminal unveiling at the Waco Regional Airport, the Penguin Shores groundbreaking on a beautiful day, our Fire Station 6 ribbon cutting and community event, and Fire Station 15 groundbreaking. We've also supported the Faith Leaders Conference and organized a couple of employee celebration events, including coffee and cookies, and we did donuts in front of City Hall. As Bradley had stated, internal communications is crucial in ensuring our employees are informed, engaged, aligned, and motivated. We want to foster a culture of transparency and trust, allowing our staff to stay updated on important developments, understand their role within the larger organizational goals, and feel connected to the city's mission and values. We send an employee newsletter every 2 weeks, which includes the City Manager Minute that you're seeing here, where we have a member of our city manager's office that provides a quick hello and shares any important information that we want our staff to be informed of. Additionally, we've been going around to different departments and creating director videos and to introduce the different departments throughout the city and their leaders to our employees, as some of our employees do not get the opportunity to work directly with other departments. We've also added a layer to our employee recognition process where we get to go out and we get to help celebrate that employee that has been recognized, and that's been fun for us to be able to participate in. So a couple of highlights and accolades that I would like to just to share with you. We recently received 6 Telly Awards for our video productions. The Telly are not just government awards, but focus on all industries and recognize excellence in video and television. Additionally, I want to highlight a few other series that we do. Our On the Job series is a behind-the-scenes look at the work that our city staff do in various departments. Some of those have included a day with Waco Police, learning more about the health inspections, a cleanup of an exhibit at the Cameron Park Zoo, and a clean out of a storm drain. Our Waddle to Waco series featured the journey of a penguin as he ventured around downtown, making his way to the new Penguin Shores exhibit. And lastly, I wanted to highlight our weekly City Beat stories, where we provide a brief overview of all the things that are happening in the city. So what are we doing now? We're putting up the finishing touches on the animal shelter rebranding and website updates. We continue working on highlighting and sharing why Waco is a great place to live, work, and play through our Waco series. We're focusing on transparent and consistent communications with our downtown redevelopment project. We'll be continuing to put out articles and highlights of our city's 175th anniversary year and supporting our economic development team as they work on the strategic plan. And an upcoming exciting event is our highlighting a PSA featuring our own mayor and D4 representative. We will be looking at some upcoming dates for some fire pushing ceremonies and continuing to look ways that we will stay connected with our community.
Anybody want to guess which one's Will Smith?
I'm always the old guy in these deals.
Lastly, just want to finish up with saying my team is committed to ensuring our community is informed and engaged and connected, and we look forward to continuing to be creative and innovative as we tell Waco's story.
Great, thank you so much, Monica. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Okay, I'll start this time. Shaking it up. Thank you, Monica, for an amazing presentation. You know that comms are like my love language, and so I appreciate every single bit of this. Really excited to see the increase in subscribers. Was there a directed push for that, or are we just adding like a QR at different events that drives that number up?
I think a little bit of both. We've been intentional about what we're putting in the newsletter, making sure that we've got information that our residents are wanting to see. And then I also think just our shift into a different platform has kind of helped us streamline some of that work.
Okay, cool. And so of the, you said 84,000 followers, I think. How many of them, what's the percentage of Wacoans and then those who are out of Waco? Do we know? Do we have that kind of breakdown?
You know, I
If
don't
not,
have
you
that
can
on me.
get it.
I can.
Because I'm just
go take a
curious,
look.
you know, because
Yeah.
as Waco has become a destination, I wanted to know if the people who are seeing our city stuff as opposed to tourism stuff, if it's our people or if it's the people who want to be our people soon.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a bit of both. We also will see an uptick this time of year with Baylor coming.
Oh, sure.
As well. We will see different family and friends that will connect with us that way as well. So I definitely think there's a combination of it. I'm still higher with, you know, the general resident who
Yeah.
wants to know what's going on in their
Yeah.
community, but we definitely see that exterior engagement as well.
My last two statements, I am so in love with all of the programming that has been happening lately. I've heard particular comments from my residents about the on the job. They love it, and
Yes.
it is really neat to watch. So I mean I even watch because you know we don't know what everybody does and what everybody's job is, and it's kind of neat to see. But you have an amazingly creative staff, and I don't think that they figured out how to say, no, we can't do that yet. So they just keep doing it and you push them and support them to do more and better. So I'm glad about that. And my last statement is, you know, Councilmember Borderwood is always just trying to get one up us. And so but I don't know how you got the early footage of him with the flag on the moon. Thank you for everything. I love this. The branding works. It is something that I do believe we as Wacoans can all agree with. In any iteration of its presentation, it is an offering of unity and of wholeness, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll build off those comments by my beloved fellow council member, Andrea Bearfield, and say that, and Monty, really, I just got a litany of praises here for you, because I think coming into this job, I don't think I really thought about communications very often. I probably was practicing some of it, managing a couple like, you know, nonprofit Facebook accounts or, you know, like, or sending out emails and things like that. But it's really, I feel like you've just kind of awoken like what this work is in messaging, and it's very inspiring. Like, I think, like, I remember sitting down with, and I feel like Councilmember Bearfield's been in this world for a lot longer, and I remember sitting down with the consultants for the branding project in the communications study, maybe before that or as part of that. I remember telling them, I don't really know much about this. I have a fax machine that I use, like, just feeling so out of, you know, like, out of it with this. But seeing what we did with the branding, I think City to Believe in was a great tag, but I think the work of standardizing our branding across departments, also in carving out like our certain kind of like county city partnerships or others that aren't wholly city, or the zoo or other things like that, was done a great job with that. I've really enjoyed, I know we had a long tradition that you've built on in the comms department and enhanced, where we used to have long form video. And you've done a great job with these series like Play Waco, Taste of Waco, even City Beat is just great. And I do love On the Job too. Like, my in-laws live in Corpus, and that's a larger city than the city of Waco. And we'll show them this content, and they're like, we have nothing like this. You know, nothing against Corpus Christi, wonderful city. But like, I feel like our comms game is quite elevated, like just showing them our PSAs, showing them some of this video content. I really feel like our social media has stepped up its game in the last several years, and I don't think we need to make like 5 to 20 second video content to like I don't think we need like the TikTok, like trying to go viral content, but the like 1 minute, the 30-second, 1 minute, I feel like we've done such a good job with that, and that our residents, it's resonating with them. Newsletter looks great. And then, yeah, events and ceremonies are just next level. And so kudos to you and your leadership and your vision for this, and kudos to your team with all the talented players you have on there. You've got some comedians, some comic actors, you've got video editors that are great, you've got great writers and social media managers and just servant leaders on the team. And so thanks for all you do. It's been really inspiring to learn about this and then to see it implemented in this way.
I'll just chime in and say I agree with all that's been said. I think we've got the best in the business here in Waco, and I'm really proud to be able to show Waco off with the content that you guys create to provide to people from other cities, family, friends, even people here in Waco that maybe are unsure about a city department or what our comms team does. Like, it's great for me to be able to have sort of a bank of incredible, and it's sleek and it's cool and it looks good. To be able to show that off is it's really great. Again, I think we've got the best in the business here in Waco. I'm really proud of you guys and your team, and I think you have been the person for the job in leading this effort in terms of the noticeable difference, and this is nothing against anyone who came before, but just seeing the moment and seizing it in terms of shifting the directions we're going with being really specific and trying to achieve broad and appealing communication across the board. So I also want to note really quickly, I didn't realize, even being in the PSA, the Purple Rain PSA, which I've talked about ad nauseum, this is my last time talking about it, it's the 40th anniversary this year of Purple Rain. Huh.
Saw that at
Yeah.
the theater.
Yeah. What do you know? Maybe we can
See, that
carve out
would
some
have been
time.
some great placement.
Yeah.
I don't know how we missed that. It's in, we'll do it again.
Next time.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do a more stay. Maybe we'll do a more stay in the time PSA.
there it is.
Yeah. No.
I'll just say real briefly that coming into this position, what you all do was not a part of city government that I had really given much consideration. But it's very important work, and you all do it really well. So thank you for that.
I'll just, Monica, thank you so much. Great job on comms. You've brought this whole job to a new level with your work and your staff. And it's an important part of a successful business, the branding and the imaging and the communication and the identification and the engagement, the connectivity, and it's also an important part of the city. So you've done a really good job on developing this. We thought we had kind of the W key. We've kind of spruced it up a little bit and really kind of standardized it and brought it across a new imaging to, like we see in these deals, it's part of the W's there, but you have a feeling of belonging and comfort there. That's a city function. I like the tagline, "A city to believe in." We got that going under your watch. So we've done a lot on social media, outreach, website, Waco City Cable Channel. I think I watch that more than anything now. It's as I channel surf, that's my go-to to end the night. It's always a safe place for my 13-year-old to watch. I don't have to worry that there's going to be some crazy stuff show up on there. But always funny, unless Boardroom has some PSA coming up that I need to know about. A very, very impressive and compelling Abraham Lincoln there, Josh.
The beard was a bit lacking.
It was good. Again, the quality, as we've said here, is great, and the awards that you've received are well-deserved. I appreciate your work. Thanks, Monica. Any other questions or comments? Great. The next item is work session 2024-640, City Manager Ford.
So our last work session of the day, we've saved about an hour's worth of time for. It's a discussion, an update on animal services operations, including the history at the animal shelter facility, a status of our operational contracts, and the next steps for staffing, operations, and branding. For this work session, we've got several folks joining us at the table. I'll work from left to right. We've got Ryan Holt, who serves as Assistant City Manager for me. We've got Ashley Nystrom, Chief of Staff. We've got Melissa Sheldon, our Animal Services Operation Manager, and last but not least is Commander Gary Hyatt, who serves over the Animal Services Division. As council and the public have become aware over the last few days, the city and the Humane Society have agreed to terminate our existing contract for the Humane Society's services at the shelter. The ratification of that agreement is on your agenda tonight for approval. And as we move through the transition with the Humane Society exiting the city's campus, we wanted to provide an update, a deep update, with a look at where we've been, our current operations, as well as what the future looks like in the coming weeks and months, because we know our animal community as well as our residents are very interested in that. The animal shelter, as you'll hear, has come a long way in the last 12 years, going from a live exit rate that was in the 30% range before the city rejoined shelter operations in 2012 to achieving our 90% plus live exit rate in 2016 and maintaining it for the last 8 years. That's an achievement that we achieved together with a lot of people, including the city council. It was hard fought, and it required the support of our entire community. And we think that's what we're going to need moving forward as well, to see continued success at the shelter. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan, and we'll work through a pretty comprehensive slide deck for you.
Thanks, Mr. Ford. Mr. Mayor, Council, we appreciate the opportunity today to be before you to give you an update on the state of animal services. The Humane Society and the City of Waco have entered into a dissolution agreement to end the most recent contract, which was signed in 2022. Before we get into that, we'll give a little bit of history and go on a little journey. Today, as Mr. Ford said, with me at the table are Commander Gary Hyatt, who leads the animal team, Melissa Sheldon, the Animal Services Operations Manager, and Ashley Nystrom, our Chief of Staff. We'll cover a few topics, starting with the history. We'll get into the budget. We'll talk about where we're going and the transition plan and next steps over the next few slides. This graphic should be familiar to everybody, as it was provided by RBDR, and you previously saw it in the presentation about the campus strategic study. As a reminder, some form of the City of Waco Animal Services have been at that facility since the 1950s. The center operated through the years, ended up being run by the Humane Society until 2012. At that time, the shelter was run as a typical shelter of the day and saw huge intakes with as many as 10,000 animals, with more than 6,000 euthanasias a year. In 2012, the Humane Society left the Animal Services campus for a while, and the city took over operations. In 2013, the Circle Road campus became the regional shelter for a dozen cities and McLennan County. And over the next 3 years, the community came together, renovated the shelter, and adopted the 90% live exit rate as the target goal for the community. During this time, the Humane Society also returned to manage positive outcomes, while the city managed animal control in the shelter itself. In 2016, combined, the renovation of the campus was completed and the live exit rate moved above the 90% goal. Just to take some people down memory lane, we wanted to show some pictures because a lot of folks don't know from where we've come. And these are photos of the campus before the major renovation in 2016 was completed. And the next slide is after the community came together, identified the live exit goal, and renovated the shelter facility.
So I'll step in here, give a little brief overview of our budget in animal services. As Bradley and Ryan have both said, we've come a long way in our community in the last 12 years, and we're certainly committed to continuing those efforts at the shelter. There has been a little bit of public rhetoric circulating recently that the city doesn't invest in animal services, or perhaps has spent money on projects that would have been better spent at the animal shelter. So I'd like to spend a few minutes just to clearly illustrate for council and the viewing public the investments of this council and of past councils, and showing our ongoing commitment to animal services and overall animal welfare in our region. So we have here a look back over the years to fiscal year 2018, when the animal shelter facility, as we currently know it, was completed, and a look ahead at the coming fiscal year for our overall operational budget for animal services. So this includes funding for our animal control unit in light blue, there at the top of the bar chart, and for the animal shelter in dark blue. The costs on this slide don't include the capital investments the city has made at the facility over the past few years. We'll get into those in the next couple of slides. But on this slide, you can see our increasing operational budget from year to year, particularly in the post-COVID timeline. So our increasing costs in operations primarily come from the addition of personnel in animal services. In the last 3 years, we've added 7 positions for a fiscal year '24, total of 28 positions on staff in that division. We have seen some inflationary impacts, most notably a 33% increase in our medical and chemical supply costs. But overall, Commander Hyatt, Melissa, and the team in animal services do a great job of managing our cost control there while still providing quality services in a difficult operating environment. I'm going to spend a little bit of time describing the addition of personnel that are detailed there at the bottom of the screen under the bar chart. These added personnel costs are not something that we take lightly. We bring any additional personnel positions to council with thought, study, and justification, and we certainly appreciate council's support in approving the addition of all of these positions and the increased level of services that those positions enable us to provide. So in fiscal year '22, we did a couple of things. We had eliminated a medical clinic position during the COVID timeline for some cost savings, so we brought that position back in fiscal year '22. And like many employers in 2022, we were experiencing great difficulty even getting people to apply to some of our positions. So our staff completed a salary study, a cost of services, and staffing study for the shelter, and we were able to implement some recommended salary adjustments for our non-exempt positions in that fiscal year, which allowed us to ensure that we were not only paying those positions adequately to be able to retain people, but also to be able to ensure that we were allowing ourselves to be competitive in the hiring market. Then in fiscal year '23, also as a result of that study, we added an additional 5 full-time equivalents to animal services. 4 of those went to our kennel technician positions, and 1 of those we converted into an animal control officer position. So the addition of those positions ensured that we were appropriately staffed for the size of facility that we operate, and also the level of operations we were seeing at the time and anticipating to continue. In fiscal year '24, you can see we added a second veterinary position, and I want to point out a couple of things here, primarily that it's not necessarily standard for a municipally operated shelter to employ even 1 veterinarian. Many city-operated shelters contract with outside veterinarians for all shelter animal care. So we have employed an animal shelter veterinarian in our time at the shelter. And in the 12 years since we've been there taking over operations of the animal shelter, the Humane Society, as a function of their contract, have been the responsible entity for ensuring that animals are spayed or neutered before they're adopted out to the public, help us stay in compliance with our local ordinances. In the last few years, the city has taken on reimbursing the costs of those services to the Humane Society. And we do perform spay and neuter in-house when possible, but I'll be frank that the level of spay and neuter wasn't a lot. As you can imagine, with just 1 veterinarian on staff and an annual intake of over 4,000 animals, that's a lot of just basic veterinary assessment and care to provide, let alone emergency care that many of the animals coming in need, and then coordinating and completing spay and neuter surgeries on top of that. So in recent years, it's become increasingly difficult for the Humane Society to keep up with the level of spays and neuters that are needed, just the volume. And a large part of that is some growing nationwide trends of veterinarian and veterinary staffing shortages, just making it difficult to book the volume of surgeries that we need, so much so that it became more pragmatic for the city to add a second veterinarian on staff to be able to fulfill some of those needs in-house. So we posted that position in December of 2023, and we were glad to finally fill that position this past July.
So, Ashley, will that secondary veterinarian likely be dedicated just to spay neuter, or do you think that it'll just be a mix for each of them?
Right now, we have it split, so each veterinarian has a day where they do surgery, and on that day, they're solely dedicated to surgery, while the other will see appointments at this time, and that may expand in the future.
And just as a refresher, do we contract out with animal birth control for some of the cities spay neuter as well? For the intake spay neuter?
Yeah, you budget a little over $200,000 that goes to the animal birth control clinic that provides low and no cost spays and neuters for folks who live inside the city limits of Waco. One of the other issues about that second vet position and the number of spays and neuters that can be accomplished there on the campus, if you remember the presentation about the new clinic building and the needs there, the space to have proper prep space and proper recovery space. We talked about that heated beach area and the recovery space of the new clinic. Plus, a number of those animals that need spay and neuter are out in foster care. And so when you get a foster animal back, you've got to have a place to hold them during the day. And if your shelter is at 100% capacity, there's difficulty there. And so we look for, once that clinic, the new clinic area is completed, to really be able to expand the number of spays and neuters that second vet and any contract vets may happen there at the clinic.
Okay, thank you all.
Great question. So for fiscal year '25, looking ahead, you do see a larger annual increase in our animal services budget, which was discussed briefly at the August 27th budget adoption meeting. This cost comes from the 15 positions that we've added in animal services, which is about 12 and a half full-time equivalents total, since some of those positions will be part-time. That brings us to 43 staff in our animal services division once we get fully staffed up in fiscal year '25. Most of these positions will support the services that we'll be assuming and continuing at the animal shelter following the Humane Society's exit from shelter operations at the end of this week. And that includes the coordination of volunteers, fosters, adoptions, and transfers to rescue. I'm sat on this slide too long, is what they're telling me. We'll discuss more on the transition and the next steps later on in the presentation, but I wanted to highlight the financial impact here. And while we're on this slide, I do want to take just a minute to highlight our animal control unit. Today's presentation is largely going to focus on the animal shelter and our shelter operations, but it's important to highlight our animal control unit and the investments that we've made there over the past few years. You can see that their budget has grown some, because they're a critical element in the equation when we think about protecting and maintaining our shelter capacity. They're a small but mighty team. We currently have 6 ACOs, including the supervisor, who manage animal control for all of Waco. And in the coming year, one of the new positions that we've added is a 7th animal control officer who will be able to help us support the community efforts in the field. And a lot of people may think of animal control officers primarily as dog catchers, but they're really much more than that. They do go out and handle our dangerous dog complaints and investigate animal cruelty cases and pick up bite quarantines. But really, they're one of our first lines of defense to keeping animals out of the animal shelter. They're out there every day providing community education, advocating for our spay, neuter, and microchipping resources, providing pet owners in need with connections that they may need to resources, and returning loose animals home without them ever having to enter the animal shelter. In 2023, our team of animal control officers handled just under 22,000 calls for service, and that's about 70 calls per week per officer. So one last note on this slide, and I promise I'm wrapping this one up, Ryan. For the dark blue animal shelter budget in particular, this budget is largely supported by the City of Waco, but it does include funding from revenues from any applicable fees in our contracts for services with their customer entities, which includes 12 other cities and McLennan County. So we charge fees for service at the animal shelter, including the surrender fees, reclaim fees, vaccination fees, boarding fees, as well as fines for certain citations. Over the past few years, the funding from those fees and contract revenues contributes in the range of 20 to 30% of our animal shelter operational costs, and the remaining 70 to 80% is funded by the City of Waco General Fund. So it's also important to note on this that the funding amounts on this slide don't reflect our general fund commitments that Ryan mentioned previously about to the entities like the Animal Birth Control Clinic and Fuzzy Friends. But these funding amounts shown on the slide do include our reimbursements to the Humane Society for their services at the shelter. So on this next slide, these are the capital investments we've made to the facility. As I mentioned, these weren't included in the operational costs that we just spoke about. These costs are fully borne by the City of Waco to invest in and upgrade the animal shelter over the last 2 years, and these costs are not passed on to our customer entities or supported by our fees. So these are strictly capital improvements. Between 2022 and 2024, we've committed just under $8.2 million to the facility, and the projects and the amounts are detailed on the slide, but they include projects like our HVAC replacements and our climate-controlled kennel halls, replacements of the play yard and cover, which is pictured there on the slide, as well as the kennel hall floor recoating project. It also includes property acquisitions that the city has made in the last 2 years of properties that are adjacent to the Animal Shelter campus for future campus planning and needs. It includes the master plan that Ryan showed an image of just recently that was presented to council on the August 6th meeting, as well as the design work approved by council at the same meeting for the design of the new veterinary clinic, which is the big ticket item on this slide for our $5 million FY25 allocation.
Ashley, can I just ask a
Absolutely.
clarifying question? Oh,
Sure.
thank you. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of this work it looks like there's only 2 items left on this list that have yet to take place in terms of starting or dollars being spent. I'm going to ask an obvious question, but I just want it on the record here. All of this work outlined here was done with the Humane Society occupying the shelter and the thought of at least the end of the 22 to 27 contract being
Yes.
in place.
Yeah.
And I say that because what I don't want it to come off as is the city is now doing all of this work because the Humane Society is no longer at the shelter.
Right.
But to reiterate that this was a financial commitment to improving the shelter that we'd had in place prior.
Yes, so you're absolutely correct. The contract for services that we have with the Humane Society was for a 5-year term that began in 2022 and would have gone through 2027. We started the facility master planning process in November of 2023, and really the conversation around the agreement to terminate the existing contract for services did not begin until late June of 2024. And we'll get into the timeline a little bit later in the presentation. So moving on to the next slide, this is a closer look at the future facility project. For more details, if the viewing public wants to watch the full presentation, Ryan gave a good highlight of it in his comments earlier. But the full presentation by RBDR to council is available on our MyWaco TV site under the August 6th work session recording, and the full facility plan document is also linked and available on the Animal Services page on the City of Waco website. But here on this slide, we have the full site map with the different colored phasing for the facility master plan, with the $5 million CIP commit that specifically covers the area that's highlighted in red, and that includes that new clinic facility, additional parking and public entry, and the secure parking and entry for staff. The new clinic is a high priority for us as it supports multiple animal welfare needs. The new clinic provides the expanded clinic space that we've already discussed, as well as it provides dedicated isolation and quarantine runs that will enhance our biosecurity measures. So currently, in response to the distemper outbreak in 2022, we had created a quarantine and isolation area by closing off 16 of our kennel runs in that gray RDY building. However, that's not an ideal situation, and it really isn't sustainable for the long term as it impacts our overall sheltering capacity and operations. So I know this team is excited to see that clinic be done in the first phase of the project. So I will turn it over to Melissa now. They only gave me a few slides, so I had to make the most of the time that I was given. But I'll let her further get into the numbers of our operations and capacity.
I do want to preface that most of these numbers are very dog-focused because we don't typically have a cat capacity crisis, so kind of keep that in mind as we go through these slides. On this slide, you can see the shelter's average monthly kennel occupancy for dogs. You can see kind of our maximum kennel occupancy number is 189. This includes the guillotine kennels, as well as puppy house and puppy isolation areas. Another thing to note on this slide is the target kennel occupancy at 80%. This number was recommended to us by Dr. Pisano of Team Shelter USA in conjunction with the University of Florida Shelter Medicine Program as a benchmark to strive towards positive welfare. They noted that overcapacity and overcrowded were identified as the single greatest risk of a disease outbreak, and staying at the 80% or near the 80% mark helps plan for sudden influxes of animals while maintaining quality of care for the animals at the shelter. And you can see of the last 30 months, 27 of them were at exceeded capacity. This slide is slightly different than the last slide, as these are kind of more point-in-time measurements as opposed to averages on the last slide. In this graph, you can see there's a slight increase in shelter population, or the dark blue at the bottom, as well as an increase in the foster numbers. It's important to note that the animals in foster still remain under the shelter's veterinary care and fiscal responsibility. This can be a resource strain on the shelter, being both at max capacity in the shelter and with increasing population total care. On this slide, you can see the shelter's animal intakes over the past few years. Animal intake has decreased about 30% in total. You can see in 2022 the intake was lowest. This is most likely due to the shelter being closed during a distemper outbreak, or when our intake was closed for 2 months. You can see that owner surrender intakes have decreased over the years. That's the dark blue that you're seeing on the chart. This is mainly due to a managed intake approach by scheduling surrender appointments and providing alternate resources to individuals to help successfully rehome their pet prior to their appointment date. So far in 2024, which is not listed, we're not seeing a significant increase in intakes and are pretty on par to stay similar to previous year's numbers. On the graph on to the right, you can see the shelter animals' length of stay. This number does include foster animals, as those animals remain in the care of the shelter until adopted or transferred. And why is length of stay important? So length of stay directly correlates to shelter capacity. When the average length of stay is longer, the daily population is greater, even with the same number of admissions per year. By shortening length of stay, it allows the shelter to help more animals and expand other services. A higher length of stay means higher cost per animal. And by caring for fewer animals at a time, this allows shelters to provide better welfare and creates capacity to provide care for animals who may require longer stays. When animals stay longer in a shelter setting, they can have heightened stress levels and may develop increases in behavioral changes the longer they're at the shelter. This mental stress can also take a toll on their health and make an animal more susceptible to illness. This can decrease adoptability and provide more challenges to placing animals. In 2024, our average length of stay, which is also not on this chart, is slightly decreased. We're sitting at 48 right now, but it's still elevated from years previously and higher than other area shelters. This slide is a great representation of how far we've come since 2012. As you can see, in 2012, the live exit rate was 33% when the Waco Humane Society ran the shelter. That year, a new partnership between the city and the Humane Society brought additional resources to the shelter. And you can see in 2016, the shelter reached its no-kill status and has maintained that status since then.
Good afternoon. The chart you're looking at currently shows the proportion of animals taken into the shelter by means of the field versus over the counter. That's year over year, fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. Those intake numbers are from the April 1st through March 31st billing cycle of the previous fiscal year. Our field intakes relate to the animals brought in by a respective city's animal control or law enforcement agency. And over the counter intake includes owner surrender and public drop-offs of any kind that are brought into the shelter by a respective citizen of that city. What you will see on this slide is that there's 8% increase in total intakes. Well, that number may seem fairly low when the shelter is operating at or over capacity like it has been recently. Every animal that enters the shelter really does count. And it's issues like length of stay that Melissa just spoke about previously really come into play.
So what are some strategies for reducing shelter intake in communities? Increasing funding for spay, neuter, and microchipping is important. The city allocates $214,000 yearly to partner with the Animal Birth Control Clinic. Also, by increasing consumer city allocations of funds for spay, neuter, it can help decrease the strain on animal shelter and animal control resources overall. Trap, neuter, release programs are also very important as it creates stabilization of community roaming cats. Re-releasing community cats is important because taking animals out of the community they live in can cause a vacuum effect, increasing unaltered animals into the recently vacated area. By re-releasing altered cat, they will stop reproducing while staying in their territory, causing the population to stabilize and decline in numbers. We also, when someone brings an animal to the shelter, we want them to think before they bring that animal to the shelter. In a study done in 2019 in San Antonio, researchers followed dogs around all day and classified them as stray or unowned animals or roaming owned animals. What they observed in this study was that 7% of all animals that they followed were truly stray, and 93% were roaming owned dogs. In fact, another study referenced that between 11 to 16% of dogs and 12 to 18% of cats are likely to go missing at least once in 5 years. We also want to be upfront to people about surrendering a behavioral dog. While we can rehab some minor behaviors, serious behaviors, the owner should really have a conversation with their veterinarian or behavioralist to see if it's an issue that can be resolved or be realistic about potential adoptability and outcome at the shelter. On a different note, most pets are found close to their home. In a study actually done by Dallas Animal Services, so not too far away from us, they found that 70% of animals were found within 1 mile of their home. Of these, 42% were less than 400 feet from their owner's address, or about 1 block away. Another study tracked how people reunited with their lost animal, finding 38 to 59% of animals were found and reunited by searching the neighborhood, whereas only 2 to 12% were found by visiting the shelter or calling animal control. We do see similar numbers reflected in our return to owner rate, which was approximately 11% last month. Underserved communities or areas with varied educational experiences with animal resources are most impacted and less likely to turn to the shelter to find a lost pet. Some people can be deterred by fees or the expectation of fees. People can also be deterred by not understanding the reclaim process or thinking it's too complicated or worth the effort. But all in all to say, intake diversion is a key element in keeping animals closer to their homes to avoid a shelter intake so the shelter can focus more on animals that need their service.
We'll talk a little bit about the timeline that got us to today and the dissolution contract. So as we've talked about before, Humane Society really was the primary operator of the shelter facility from '83 to about 2012. In that period we talked about earlier and highlighted from 2012 to 2017, the Humane Society really transitioned to facilitate outcomes, and the city ran the animal shelter part of and handled intakes on an annual contract basis. In 2017, we signed the first 5-year contract between the two entities. In 2018, the Humane Society approached then City Manager Wiley Stem and indicated that there were some financial issues with the ongoing cost of those spay or neuter services that Ashley pointed out earlier, that according to the contract, the Humane Society was responsible for all spays and neuters. The city agreed to start reimbursing up to 50% cost of those spay and neuter services with contract vets, as the landscape around vets had already started to change. When we began renegotiating the contract that was coming to an end there in August of '22, the Humane Society again notified us that they would like additional conversation around financial opportunities. And when we renewed that contract, it was an additional 5-year contract, but we specifically added a financial reopener to allow for negotiations around those financial aspects to go on. They brought to our attention, and we recognized and saw in other communities that really after COVID, you saw a change in the saturation of adopted animals in various communities and a greater reticence of individuals to want to pay for adopting an animal or surrendering an animal. And the model previously had been that the Humane Society would keep those fees, and that was their primary financial model. We recognized that there were potential issues with that and agreed to have ongoing conversations. We met in June of '23 as the first really meet about that financial reopener and talked about the possibilities. In November of that year, the Humane Society sent a contract really that sought control of operations and introduced some things that were beyond financial or negotiations. So in January of '24, we sent a contract back that because we recognized that those fees were now missing from their income, the city offered to replace all the missing fees and set up a performance incentive based on key performance indicators. They were not mutually exclusive. In addition to setting up the fees, there were those incentives that based on percentage of population at the animal shelter at a given time. In February of '24, we received a letter from the Humane Society indicating they would vacate the shelter facility unless their demands were met. When we inquired what those demands were, we were told that it was $1.2 million a year subsidy with no performance indicators. We responded in March that we thought not only was the monetary amount a little high, but that we thought that it would be irresponsible of us with taxpayer dollars to agree to anything that didn't include key performance indicators and to let the taxpayer know what they were getting for their money. It's important to note that by April 11th of 2024, we had remitted to the Humane Society under the contract that was renewed in 2022, $134,000. So we were surprised on the 19th when the Trib ran an article from a former Humane Society president stating that not only did the city want to kick the Humane Society out, but that no contract existed at that point in time. So we were able to provide documents to the Trib showing that, that indeed the Humane Society had made that threat of vacating and that there was indeed an ongoing contract. We indicated at the time that we considered contracts ongoing under that financial reopener, and the city and the Humane Society met again in May of that year, or of this year. The Humane Society in that meeting denied the validity of an existing contract and determined that they needed to seek outside counsel. In June, they came back to us and decided that there was indeed a contract, but they made additional demands that were beyond financial discussions, and at that point in time, a mutual dissolution agreement was discussed. That's what we're here to talk about today. The dissolution agreement was executed on August 23rd, and the Humane Society's last day on the campus will be this coming Friday, September 6th. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the city will hire the FTEs necessary. As Ashley pointed out, it's about 13 FTEs and 15 actual positions because some of them will be part-time positions. But you will see the city replace all of these functions: the adoption program, rescue and foster program, community outreach, customer service, the volunteer program, an extensive behavioral evaluation program, and ongoing animal health. It will include positions that have been talked about earlier related to the volunteers and playgroup. We had a hiring fair just last week, and a number of these positions are already filled moving forward.
Just go on about some of what goes on behind the scenes as far as our decision-making goes. The Animal Services team routinely consults with renowned experts in the animal sheltering field. Dr. Sarah Pisano with Team Shelter USA has made several on-site visits and has made various recommendations regarding best practices in sheltering that have been implemented on campus with some success. Dr. Sandra Crawford with the University of Florida's Shelter Medicine Program has given valuable insight and resources to bolster our disease outbreak mitigation processes and was a central figure in the shelter's ability to reopen after a December outbreak in '22. Dr. Valerie Hines is a veterinary behaviorist with the SPCA of Texas, who recently consulted with us as the shelter revamps its behavior assessment and welfare program. On top of establishing relationships with industry leaders, the shelter also employs an extraordinary staff. We have two on-site veterinarians, Dr. Michael Vallon and Dr. Carrie Lamowitz, both graduates of Texas A&M. Dr. Vallon's been with us since 2020, and Dr. B, as I'll call him, just started in July. Outside of the veterinary staff, We have Melissa Sheldon, who's the operations manager, who holds a bachelor's in animal science from Texas A&M University. She has 12+ years in animal welfare experience, to include 5 years in government open intake shelter operations, and is currently in the process of being certified as an animal welfare administrator through the Association for Animal Welfare Advancement. Our kennel supervisor, Ashley Brooks, also carries a bachelor's in animal sciences from Oklahoma State University and has 8 years experience in various roles within animal services. Christina Thane, our animal control supervisor, has a bachelor's in criminal justice from Texas A&M University. She is a certified animal cruelty investigator through the Texas Animal Control Association. She is the local rabies control authority for McLennan County and has been with the animal control unit for 5+ years. With continued relationship building with industry experts and key talent acquisition and development within the division, we are uniquely equipped to continue providing quality animal services to our city and the surrounding communities. This slide shows some of the various Texas statutes that also guide our policies and procedures internally, along with best practice recommendations and expert consultations. The shelter is also statutorily obligated to meet state standards. The shelter is inspected on a yearly basis and has passed its most recent inspection by the Texas Department of State Health Services in August, with compliments from the state inspector on the state of our facility, noting that it is one of the nicest animal shelters that he has been to.
So what are the shelter's known challenges? The rising amount of animals in foster care with extended durations in shelter above maximum capacity both put a strain on shelter resources. Animals are staying longer than they ever have before. No recovery of costs, so waived adoption fees, assistance with reclaim fees, or waiving of reclaim fees more so than ever before. And then community saturation. With the amount of animals needed to place, have we oversaturated the community with adoptable animals?
The shelter and the staff down there are committed to coming up with creative solutions to those challenges, as Melissa pointed out. But we wanted to point out also that we're not in this alone. These are highlights and headlines from news stations and newspapers across the southern part of the United States and Texas. This is a situation that our community shares with many, many other communities across the United States, where there is that ongoing saturation of animals and a reluctance or reticence for adoption and foster. We're fortunate to have a large number of individuals locally that have worked with the Humane Society that are committed to fostering. But there is also a burden that comes with that. So you can see from these headlines that we are not in this alone.
So in the coming days and weeks, as Monica mentioned in her presentation, you will see us launch a rebrand of the animal shelter. And really there's some need for that. We've seen quite a bit of confusion as we've discussed recently the Humane Society's exit from the facility. There's a lot of public confusion about what the city's role has already been at the animal shelter and will continue to be. So at this juncture, we plan to implement a new name, logo, and overall branding package that sets the animal shelter apart, similar to how some of our other amenity and public-facing departments, like the airport, public health, and Cameron Park Zoo, have their own unique brands that are not beholden to our standard city branding guidelines. So some of our key messaging in this rebrand will include that our facility really is a step above standard municipal animal shelter. We provide comprehensive care and expanded services above and beyond what typical government shelters provide. We want our facility to be a hub for community involvement. We'll provide educational workshops and focus on an overall positive environment for our animals, staff, and community alike. So the timeline for that is imminent. In the coming weeks, we're going to launch that multi-channel campaign. We'll be implementing facility updates to reflect the new brand identity, and that will be reflected across our online platforms as well. So in the meantime, because we are in a transitional period, the best place for the public to receive information on our animal shelter operations will be the City of Waco website under the Animal Services Division. So that website is linked there on the slide, the waco-texas.com/animal services. We will use our social media channels and other media mechanisms to push out more timely updates to draw attention to information that is needed to disseminate. But our animal shelter website really is a wealth of information. It includes operational information ranging from our shelter hours and contact information, includes all the links to important resources for pet owners and animal advocates. We also have multiple ways for the general public to donate and support the animal shelter. And most recently, our staff has worked with our communications and IT teams to implement a live dashboard on the website that details comprehensive statistics of our current animal data. And that's a snippet of that dashboard there on the right. Our staff will be contacting volunteers and fosters as a part of this transition. I know that's been a big question, but we are asking for some patience from everyone as we are still in the process of interviewing and staffing up some of those positions, as well as there's still some information that needs to be exchanged between the city and the Humane Society, including the contact information of the volunteer list, since that has historically been a roster that's been managed and operated under their side of the house. So in summary, there really is an incredible story to tell and continue telling about animal welfare in our community. We've made great strides in the last 12 years, and we should all be proud of the no-kill live exit rate that's been achieved in Waco for the region and maintained for the last 8 years. It's not easy. We've been operating under critical capacity for a long time. 2.5 years is a long time for staff and the animals in the shelter to operate in that capacity. But the city has responded with increasing investments over the years to meet the demands. We don't take it lightly that council has approved 22 positions in the last 2 years for one division. That's a significant investment by council. So as of 5 p.m. on Friday, September 6th, the city will be the responsible entity for managing all operations at the animal shelter. We are invested and committed to continuing the good work of animal welfare, not only for the city of Waco, but for all of our customer entities in the region. So I invite everyone to stay tuned for our new look and look for opportunities to plug in, volunteer, and adopt from the animal shelter.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. I think that there's no question that the city of Waco is investing significant resources and has continued to invest significant resources, especially since 2012 taking over the shelter. Grateful for the Humane Society of Central Texas, grateful for all they've done and all the love and all the blood, sweat, and tears they poured into adopting out these animals, caring for these animals, and hopeful for this new phase of our relationship with the Humane Society of Central Texas. Appreciative to our staff, administration of the shelter, the staff workers, volunteers, everyone in anticipation of this transition, and really excited for this focus. I know this is expansion, this is a huge investment, but it demonstrates the city and our community's dedication to animal welfare and caring for so many of these stray and abandoned pets. I know the Borderud family has had a wonderful experience. We adopted a dog from the shelter thanks to the Humane Society in the city of Waco in January of 2022, and Buddy Borderud has been a great addition to the family, brought a lot of warmth and love to us. He's helped me lose about 20 pounds just walking up and down my street several miles a day, and so just a great experience, and it would encourage a lot of the community members, if you're thinking about adopting a pet, this is a great place to get one. So thank you all for all the good work you've done. Thanks to the Humane Society for the role they've played in getting it to this point, and grateful to both parties as they move forward towards seeking the best for our animals and our community.
Anyone else? Questions or
I just want
comments?
to thank them for this report. I have been to your animal shelter several times with my daughter. She loves big dogs. I had a little pet rat terrier, but he's gone now. But this black and white one right here in the end looks like my Lucky. His name was Lucky. But I have gone to your shelter. When I went, it was very nicely run. The staff was very helpful. And no one knew when I went there who I was. So the staff was very helpful to my daughter and myself. And my little 2-year-old that was so excited about being there. She loves all dogs. And we had a very nice time there, and she did pick a dog. And I want to thank you for this report, and just saying that I have been there to your shelter. It was run very nicely, and I don't know what I expected, but you were way over my expectation of going to that animal shelter. So thank you for this report, and thank you what you do for what you do to our pets and our animals out there, that I know they drop them off to you guys, and you're trying to find homes for them and trying to keep them healthy, and thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, I will actually just add, and echoing the sentiments of my council members, the operations of the shelter, be it by the Humane Society or otherwise, staff at the front desk, anyone I've interacted with, there's always been pleasant. It's always been a welcome, a warm welcome when I walk in with a dog that my wife and I found, which happened quite a bit between 2020 and 2023, I'll say specifically, probably about a dozen times, which leads me to my next point. I know we touched on the fee structure being something that would dissuade people from wanting to help and bring a dog by. The good news is you can take it to any fire department in city limits, and they will scan the dog for a chip. I've been fortunate enough to successfully reunite 2 dogs with owners, which is always fun. And if not, you can get a waiver while you're there for doing your due diligence as a citizen to have the fees waived for drop-off. I know this is like the weird yin and yang of wanting to collect fees for operations, but also not wanting to dissuade people from utilizing the systems we put in place, but wanted to call that out. But yes, wholly supportive of this, and I think one thing I do want to say is beyond the machinations of contract negotiations or who is operating the shelter or who does what in the right way or the wrong way based on who's looking at it. The folks that are occupying our animal shelter and they're on the ground every day need our support. It is not an easy job. It is not easy dealing with people or animals at their worst, and I feel like that is what staff encounters there quite often. And so not only do the people need our support, but the animals need our support. If you're watching this, if you're catching it late night like Mayor Holmes does on WCC TV, take some time, consider if you've got room in your house for another animal, dog, cat. We have 2 dogs, both rescues, and a baby, so not really room for us. But and if you've got room and it's not long-term room, foster always helps too. Yeah, so the people and the animals need your support, regardless of who is operating the shelter, and I just wanted to say that. So,
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll just say great presentation. Appreciate it, Ryan and Ashley and team. It's a tough issue. I mean, as you pointed out in one of the slides, it's not just Waco trying to deal with an isolated problem. Cities all across Texas and all across the United States are trying to solve the same thing we are with, and Ashley, I like the way you said it, critical capacity and all the issues that go along with that. As I try to logically think through, the stages of, we have a responsibility to the city, or the city has a responsibility to the residents of animal control. We've got if strays and those animals presenting a danger to the residents, we have an obligation to start the intake process right there. And as you can see, the costs going up there, and then as we intake them into this shelter, we have to take care of them while they're there. We need to take care of these dogs and cats while they're there, and other animals. So a lot of medical stabilization costs and just pure capacity, like what we're talking about. And capacity translates into money and layout, and we're talking about investing $5.5 million in this budget cycle to help address that. But I mean, these are these are not inexpensive solutions either, because we have overcrowding that we're talking about here, and again, just capacity issues. And then third, after you keep them in there for a period of time and try to place them, that's, the Humane Society's done a great job with that, and I'll thank them here in a second, but that is even getting more and more difficult. The placement back into the society, and the one page you have, and their known challenges, just rising number of animals in foster care. And as that graph indicated, there's some perceived possible liability there too in having these animals outside of the direct care of the city. And so there's a lot to digest here, and I appreciate the Humane Society for being a part of the solution here, and very much appreciate city staff on their leadership in trying to get us through this issue. Because yeah, we've over the other graph that jumped out at me, in the last 5 years, we are going from raising costs of this enterprise from $2 million to over $4 million, and if you count the capex of next year, we're talking about an $8 million investment, which is not a small blip on our budget. It's a big commitment here. Again, thanks for the report. Thank staff for everything they do down at the shelter. And again, I want to make a special thanks to the Humane Society. I know there's some folks from the society here today. We had a great track record with you guys on no-kill status, and you guys have your hearts in it, and volunteers who care about the pet situation in Waco. And again, you have your hearts in for the welfare of our pets in Central Texas. So I do want to mention that too. But yeah, let's start figuring out some solutions here, and appreciate everybody's work on this. The next item, any other questions, any other comments? None. The next item is work session 2024-641, request for scheduling of future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items, guys? Anything? Nothing, George? Nothing down there? Okay. We'll now recess the work session, reconvene the regular session or executive session as read into the record by the city secretary at 4:56 p.m.
It's hereby given that the City Council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions. Real property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072. Project being that mixed-use development on city-owned and adjacent properties near City Hall. Attorney briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071. Litigation regarding possible use of per and polyfluoroalkyl substance. Attorney briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071. Thale Construction Company, Incorporated versus City of Waco, Texas, cause number 2-1802-5, pending in the 414th Judicial District Court of McLennan County, Texas. Real property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072, and Economic Development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. We are now in executive session.